here with me
Hello.
and Evelyn and this live stream and some Boba. So some of you are Boba fans. If you're not Boba fans, you really should check it out because it's quite delicious. So Evelyn, what kind of drink do you have there?
Somebody got this for me, fruit tea, because I'm very sensitive to caffeine. I can't do caffeine after like 2 p.m. So I'm having fruit tea.
Yeah, it's true. Evelyn, if she has caffeine past a certain hour, then she becomes like this night owl. It's a bit of a problem.
And then I'll be like, Andrew, are you awake?
And I'll be like, no, I'm not. Yeah, did you have something? And be like, I think that like XXX had so it could be very, very frankly, pretty slight. It could be, I think that coffee ice cream had like anything that's related to caffeine.
Earl Grey cookies, bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, Evelyn's got a very sensitive to caffeine metabolism. So in my case, I got a fairly standard issue milk tea with, you can see at the bottom, those are red beans. I kind of swap out boba for red beans quite often is what I do. I get it with 30% sugar because I feel like it's a little bit more manageably sweet. So let's go ahead and let's cheers. So
good passion fruit in this.
So these particular bubble teas are from BB, which is right around the corner from us, but there's also a cocoa. There are also other types of, what's your favorite bubble tea chain, if there is a bubble tea chain that you're attracted to?
Oh, I love all of them, but I really like cocoa. You know why? They have something called winter melon tea, which VB doesn't have. And
Damien loves it.
It's caffeine free. So
yeah. Before we start taking questions, and please do text your questions in, and then they'll just get beamed onto our screen. Update of the race. How is the race going? It is going great. So there's big news today that the CFB, which is the Campaign Finance Bureau, I believe is the acronym, raised the cap. So what the heck does that mean? That we're part of this public financing system. That's why there's a magical 8-to-1 match that is still on. So if you're in New York City and you donate any amount between $10 and $250, we get an 8 times match for it. But as part of participating in that match, there's a spending limit, and that spending limit is $7.2 million unless someone raises more than that from outside the system, and then the spending cap goes up from 7.2 to 10.9 million. So today the CFB said that someone, I think it was Ray McGuire, raised more than the $7.2 million and it spent around that amount. And so they raised the cap from 7.2 to 10.9 million. So what does that mean for us?
This fundraiser could not have come at a better time.
Yeah, that is right. So what that means is that we have a bit of a sprint ahead of us, which is to raise a couple $1 million while we're running through mid-June, so that we can have as much money to get out the vote and get our message out and get some ads on TV as anybody else. And there are a couple candidates that have more money on hand than we have had, because they have had something like it's called a 2-year head start. 2 years just to be so if you are supportive of the campaign, please do make a donation tonight, or else we'll never have Evelyn back in one of these events. No, I'm kidding.
Ship her off somewhere, never to be seen again.
Evelyn, you're not enough of a draw. So but yeah, like right now we are in a bit of a fundraising sprint. We have a goal for the end of the month. We have a goal for a bunch of stuff. We're doing great.
These are the critical weeks.
These are the critical
final weeks.
Yeah. So if this were a ball game, I'd say we're in like the middle of the third quarter, like entering the fourth quarter, because early voting starts in 6 weeks and 2 days. I mean, so if you think about it, 6 weeks and 2 days, it's not much time. So Bo asks, what's the maximum donation? Wow, Bo, what a question. I like where Bo's head is. So the maximum donation you can make is $2,000. So if anyone does that, you'll have our eternal gratitude and you'll definitely get a shout out. Oh, shout outs. Look at this. Thank you. Yay. You want to do the honors?
Daniel, Keith, Paul, Robert, Ashley, Sylvia, Baden, Linda, Steve, thank you. Thank you.
Yay!
Toast to you guys.
Toast to you. Yay. Rennie has a question. As mayor, how does Andrew plan to address the anti-Asian sentiments for New York City residents? So Rennie, this is obviously a subject that's near and dear for both me and Evelyn. There are a number of things that I think we can be doing better at a higher level. We should be investing resources in Asian American community organizations and help build more connections, frankly, for Asian Americans to feel comfortable reporting some of these incidents, because I guarantee that a lot of these incidents aren't being expressed. And I know this because I've talked to some of the victims. I am for investing in an ongoing anti-Asian or anti-hate crime police force instead of the volunteers that they're currently using. That when you're responding to things like some of these terrible incidents around people getting beaten and stabbed, I do think police have to be part of the solution. I am excited at the prospect of presenting a different type of leadership in New York City. And I think a lot of Asian Americans who've grown up here, and Evelyn, you can speak to this, I mean, you grew up in Queens, like I'd like to believe that having an Asian American mayor would actually make like people from our community feel like even a greater part of New York City than we already are. And so I like to think that that could also perhaps bring people together and ease some of the anti-Asian sentiment that we're seeing. And I'm certainly going to be doing everything I can to, frankly, like drive energy towards small businesses and restaurants and retailers in Asian American communities that right now are really hurting. Like when I visit those communities, they're among some of the hardest hit. So thank you for the question, Rennie. There's a lot of work to be done there. I'm actually going to say something, I don't know if this is in politics, but I'll run it by everyone. So, you know, when you show up at the airport or you drive into New York City and there's like a sign or like maybe even sometimes a voice that says like, welcome to New York City, like mayor. Like I did have a moment where I thought to myself, wow, having like, you know, Andrew Yang, welcome to New York. Like, I like to think that that would say something really positive about our city. I like to think so, at least. Yeah, you know, it's a small thing, but, you know, like it might be meaningful. Evelyn?
Well, you're talking about welcoming tourists or
Oh,
people
yes.
back to the city.
Oh yeah, I mean, it'd be New Yorkers who are coming back too,
Yeah.
because you might see it too.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it does happen. We do leave the city occasionally. New Yorkers have been known to like actually step out of town for a minute.
Yeah, I think that's very meaningful to have the first Asian mayor of New York City. I do think that for a city like New York,
It might have happened already.
Yeah, right. I'm sort of surprised that it hasn't happened.
Well, I mean, it's also, I mean, frankly, surprising there hasn't been a woman mayor as well. I mean, you know, there
Absolutely.
hopefully there will be some firsts in the days ahead. So let's see about Thomas asks, what do we think about local law 97 and making sure NYC leads in combating climate change? It's a great question, Thomas. So those of you who don't know, local law 97 is a law that's asking New York City to reduce its fossil fuel consumption and its emissions by, I think it's 40% by 2030, I think is the goal. And it's a very ambitious goal. It's something that we really need to make progress on as quickly as possible. We're not on track to do it. I mean, honestly, I think some people may know this. So we released a plan to try to accelerate our ability to address climate change. And there are a lot of things we can do. I mean, it's sort of exciting. Like that, there's one giant unknown that I'm very optimistic about, which is the level of federal investment in greening our city. I think that there's a major opportunity there. But there are a lot of things we can do in the interim around speeding up permits for battery storage facilities and connections to Con Ed lines. It's one thing. I'm hoping to electrify our vehicle fleet and buses. That would be awesome. I think if you had an electric,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, it really would be, right?
The sheer volume of people and vehicles.
Yeah.
Here in the city.
Like, wouldn't it be a great feeling if you every time you saw a New York City official vehicle, it was electric?
There are some already electric buses.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, and they're very proud of it. I feel like it's always on the side,
It's always
like advertised on the side, right?
Yeah.
But there should be more of those.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah, and it could include not just buses, but other
Mhm.
types of vehicles. You know,
Mhm.
one thing I'll let you know, and I don't want to overpromise on this day because it's very much a pilot,
Mhm.
but there was even an electric garbage truck that was getting piloted.
Ooh.
I mean, wouldn't that be something?
I think I've seen solar powered trash receptacles somehow.
yeah, they're the trash receptacles that have the
Right?
solar panels on it
Yeah.
that I think are
Um,
supposed to
That's
facilitate.
pretty neat.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
So that kind of feeling you
Mhm.
have, hopefully
That's
we
the
can
kind of
expand it.
innovation we need. We need to be leading, right?
Yeah,
on this,
completely.
right.
We're also looking at there are a lot of things in the green plan,
Mhm.
Thomas, but you know, they're like, if we're going to get it down by 40% in 9 years, and we got to really act
Mhm.
fast, and we're trying to shoot past that. Our plan is to try and get our energy consumption down. Well, not our energy consumption, like our emissions and output down by 50% instead of 40%.
Mhm.
And that's a very ambitious goal, but it's doable if a lot of things change very quickly. So that's hopefully, Thomas, that gives you a sense of it. And I think Thomas was writing from the Rockaways, which is a coastal community.
Mhm.
I
Did you
think
have a plan where you were just recently there?
I was
Or-
recently
yeah.
there. It's very delightful. But one of the things that hopefully the federal money will go to is protecting our shoreline. And there are things we can do there too. When I was actually in the Rockaways, there was a
Mhm.
property owner who said that he wanted to do some things to make his shoreline more resilient and flood proof.
They did a lot of work out there after Sandy.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There needs to be more. And so, but
Mhm.
this property owner even said to me, it's like, look, I just need a permit to do this work.
Mhm.
I'll do it for you. Like, I don't even need to wait for you all.
Amazing.
So part of it really is like trying
Mhm.
to make sure the city is more of a partner in helping.
Cut down like the bureaucracy, red tape.
And there's like a shocking consistency to how many people talk to me about the red tape and bureaucracy.
Mhm.
Small business owners, homeowners of different types, like that. There are a lot of people that feel like, look, like we could do more, but you know, it's hard to get
But they need a
approvals.
partner in the city, someone who's going to be more of an like a administration that will be more of an enabler.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We want to be like, you know, I haven't used the term before, but an enabler. I mean, because enabler has sort of a negative connotation. It's like you're enabling someone to do
Well,
bad
if you're
things.
taking like, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, you can be enabler for good things, I think.
So I mean, maybe you guys can let us know.
Yeah.
Like, does
How do you
enabler?
use the word enabler?
Because am I the only one who thinks when they hear enabler, it's like anyway?
Does it have an exclusively negative connotation or not?
We'll have to look into that.
Mhm.
So there is a question here I think is extraordinarily important from a young person. Sebastian, you may not be even able to vote. He's a 14-year-old from the Upper West Side. So Sebastian asks, seeing a rise in crime in my city is saddening. How do you plan to address the rise of crime? Sebastian, congrats on caring about, you know, politics when you're 14. I mean, that's cool. Bug your older siblings or parents about getting out to vote. Early voting starts June 12th. It's so soon. Again, 6 weeks and change. But the concerns around public safety are also very, very consistent among the things I hear in New York City. And we have to adopt a multi-pronged approach to try and get, frankly, violent crimes down and our sense of safety up. So among the things that I am championing, Sebastian, and this I'm going to start with something that actually doesn't, you know, in many respects even directly pertain to crime. But I've already committed to reducing street homelessness by 50% or more in my first term. And that's a human issue, that's a recovery issue, but at the margins, it is a public safety issue sometimes. For the most part, people who are on our streets are not violent or criminal in the least, but every once in a while, someone who is struggling or mentally ill or something will do something really unfortunate. So that's one thing I think that would improve our sense of safety and improve public health at the margins. In terms of the approach to violent crime itself, we have to do everything we can to limit the flow of illegal firearms into New York City. There are very strict gun laws here, but in the vast majority, about 79% of the guns that we're seeing are coming in from other states.
Can we buy them back?
So there has been something like of a perpetual buyback going on, but it hasn't been that effective, honestly. Like we're going to continue it, but it's not really that much of like a
Incentive.
or a solution. Though it did occur to me too. It's like maybe we're not paying enough. Maybe
Right.
we just pay more. But like that, there's been an ongoing buyback. So that's something very direct. I do think that we should be looking at some of the approaches we've had in other times to trying to get guns out of circulation in some of the neighborhoods that have been harder hit. And so we're looking at inaugurating what we're calling an anti-violence unit that can include plainclothes officers in some of these communities to try to reduce the supply of firearms in some of these places. So there are a number of things that we can do, Sebastian. I'm optimistic that we can improve the situation. I actually spoke to like a very senior law enforcement official who also happens to be a Black woman yesterday, and she gave us some really great guidance. And she said she was confident. It's like, look, if we do things smart and professionally in a particular way, we can get the shootings down and the rates of violent crimes down. So people on my staff are saying, hey, you're not donating enough. Donate at, so if you actually type in andrewyang.com, it'll end up redirecting you to the mayoral site. But please do donate, or else it'll hurt our feelings. And then the team will be like, hey, people don't want to see you drink boba or whatever we're doing, which I know isn't
Maybe
true.
we'll switch it up next time.
Maybe the problem is the boba,
Maybe.
baby. Oh yeah, oh, there's no problem at all.
No.
Let's see if we have, we have some more donations. Shout out to, this time I'll do it, the honors.
Okay.
May, it's either Devon or Devon, Ong, Christoph, Kenneth, and Kevin. Thank you. Yay. So Leo asks, I read about your public housing plan to build more affordable housing in NYC over the next 8 years. Could you elaborate more about how that would work and why you set the budget for that plan at that level? Thank you, Leo. So yesterday I announced an affordable housing development plan that's the most ambitious in 30 years, in part because this is mission critical for the city. The fact is we've produced less affordable housing over the last 9 years than any other comparable city. There are a number of structural reasons why. That right now we have a big opportunity. There's been federal funding that's been approved for conversions, frankly, of underutilized commercial office spaces and some hotels. Now I'm going to do everything I can to try and get our hotels acting as hotels again. But there are, I think, going to be at least some hotels that would be better served converted into affordable housing units. And those conversions can save a lot of money and time. So the major tenets of the affordable housing plan that we've put out is around trying to make the process a little bit less politicized. Because right now, the way it works is that the negative incentives are kind of stronger than the positive incentives when it comes to affordable housing. So everyone is for affordable housing in the abstract. But then if I say, hey, great news, affordable housing coming to your community, then some people don't like it so much. And in a way, totally understandable, it's very human. So then there is a policy right now where the individual city council member, where any proposal is cited, can essentially veto the project. So if you think about the way it's worked out in real life in New York City over the last number of years, that the negative incentives for that individual city council member are very high, because people will go like, hey, your job is to stop this thing. And then the positive incentives, you know, are there, but they're actually somewhat diffused around different parts of the city. So the goal is to try to make it so that the individual city council member doesn't have quite as much pressure on them, frankly, just to be saying no to everything. And so you want to integrate that city council member into like a larger group, like a commission or panel, so that you can make decisions that frankly don't skew towards the negative. So this is probably the first you're hearing about this.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, this is interesting. Is there already a push towards that?
Well, what's interesting is this policy of member deference is actually, it's been informally adopted. So there's actually no rule that says that the individual district member can veto a project, but what has happened is every city council member has said, well, like whatever the person in the district says, we're all going to go along with. And so the case I'm making to the city council members is like, look, this is good for the city. It's good for you individually. It's good for everyone. If we have a process that isn't quite so, it's so reliant upon like the one person who again, oftentimes is going to have a lot of
pressure.
Yeah, negative pressures, honestly, because like the people that are benefiting from a project often are, like more varied, and then the people that are going to be against it tend to be very, very concentrated. So that's part of the plan. The level of commitment we're looking at is actually, it's order of magnitude. It's like a bit more than has been spent in times past, but not like, frankly, like I think we're committing $4 billion towards it out of a budget of, right now it's like, let's call it 95 billion in this direction to build 30,000 units a year. And I think like during de Blasio's administration, it was around like 3.5 billion. So it's not like, what we're proposing is very big and ambitious, but a lot of the value is going to hinge on whether we can improve the process, really.
Sounds like a lot of our issues are around processes, right? Like
a significant number and like non-trivial proportion. So Evelyn, you had a call just now about something very serious and weighty. I don't know if you want to share it or talk about it at all.
I mean, I spend I'm on a lot of Zoom meetings these days talking about child abuse and child abuse prevention. So it has some heavy stuff. So I'm not as
for those of you who don't know,
lighthearted.
Evelyn just wrote a children's book. And I think someone may even grab a copy and like we'll be able to brand it. Oh, so sorry about that.
Right, there's no cross promotion here.
Oh yeah, sorry, but I was just proud. So Chester has a question. How would you reduce homelessness when previous administrations have failed in large measure, and who would you model your program after? So there, Chester, this is a very important question. I touched on it a little bit earlier. So there are two major categories of homelessness, and they're both very substantial and serious. But when most people think about homelessness, what they're thinking about is street homelessness, which is you walk out and you see someone on the street and you think that person's homeless. Now, the last count of street homeless in New York City counted 4,000 people. But there's a multiplier over every 12-month period of 4.5. And so you're looking at somewhere between 4 and 20,000 people on the streets of New York, 4 and 18,000 technically, but 4 and 18,000 people on the streets of New York City in any 12-month period is our best sense of it. Now, the number of people in our sheltering system is actually significantly higher. That number is around 60,000. But these are not people that you see on the streets. They're actually in the sheltering system. So when you talk about reducing homelessness, I think, Chester, you're referring to street homelessness. And the goal there is to get people off of our streets and into better environments like something called safe haven beds, which are beds that are provided by nonprofit orgs, often religiously affiliated. So right now there are about 1,200 safe haven beds in New York City. And the number we need is frankly, like, that seems
so low.
it is too. It is low, right?
That number is shockingly low.
So that number could easily be 3 times higher, ideally 4 times higher. And people who are struggling with street homelessness prefer safe haven beds because they tend to be in different environments that are a little bit more private and semi-private. And some have had, frankly, issues with the shelters. The shelters have, sometimes are a little bit more crowded and have some people have had negative experiences. So when you're trying to reduce street homelessness, we need to increase our supply of safe haven beds, of something called a supportive housing, which is housing that has mental health resources and substance abuse resources attached that people can utilize. And
how many facilities are there?
For how many supportive housing units are there? So there are thousands, tens of thousands.
Having all the different services.
Yeah, supportive housing is the best answer. One of the issues that we're facing is that there's been a bottleneck in the building of supportive housing because it's something that frankly requires the state legislators and the city to coordinate on, and that hasn't really been.
Why don't we have full control over it?
Well, because a lot of the funding mechanisms for supportive housing actually come from the state, and so this is something that requires us to work closely with Albany on. But there's a lot of opportunity for supportive housing, and then the other place that we need to invest is that the number of psych beds in New York City has gone down by 14% because of hospital closures, and I think most of us sense that you need to have more hospital beds, like more psych beds,
right?
Than like unfortunately the needs have gone up, not down, and the capacity has gone down. So when you talk about trying to reduce street homelessness, if you invest in safe haven beds, supportive housing, and at the margin psych beds, and then you have a more assertive standard of trying to get people to some of these environments. And I've talked to the nonprofit workers who actually interface with street homeless people every day. We can reduce street homelessness significantly, and I've committed to doing so by 50% in the my first term. And then the homeless shelter population, like that, it's something that we'd love to tackle as well, but like the force is there. Frankly, if you're doing it right, having people in your shelters is not necessarily like, a sign of failure. It can just mean that there's a lot of need. Is this interesting?
Shout outs to
Go ahead, baby.
Michelle, Chi, Victoria, Douglas, Carrie, Elliot, Fang, and Preston.
Thank you. Yay.
I feel like we haven't been drinking it.
I'm drinking yours now?
No, I'm trying to.
Oh, you're trying to toast me? Okay. Thank you.
Toast to reducing homelessness.
Street homelessness.
Street homelessness.
Technically. All right. So why donate? Where's the money going to go? One of the things, oh no, Evelyn had a little bit of a
Boba accident.
Boba spill. So one of the things, it's been fascinating. We've been trying to figure out where to allocate our funds, and every donation you make makes it more possible for us to do things like have people out in the field, have foreign language media advertisements, and not just Spanish and Chinese, but other languages. Russian would be an example. Like I really want to reach the Russian community here. So what's been fascinating is, as a campaign, we kind of have like plan A, if we have this much money, and then if you all donate and get us up to like a certain level, then we adopt plan B, which is like, ooh, some of like the other items around like foreign language. And
nice. I didn't know this.
Yeah, and mailers. There's even one thing you can do where you can actually like send people, not just mailers saying, hey, go out and vote, but like you can actually like send people like, ballots because there's an early voting period of 10 days. And so someone can, like get that ballot and then fill it out, and then return it anywhere from June 12th to June 22nd. So every donation you make makes it more possible for us to like do some of this like extra awesome stuff that we really want to do. Is that exciting?
So you can send people ballots. You don't have to request. It doesn't have to be the person requesting a ballot for themselves.
I think there's something we can do where we can like just make it easier for people. But there's like there's an expense associated with it. So Jomo says nurses should be paid more, and I think we all agree. Shout out to nurses for being so incredible, really,
they were
at
so
all
good
times.
To Andrew when he had his kidney stones.
Yeah, but I mean, more so, so many of them were superheroes during this time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so shout out.
Joke about your kidney stones, but
they were awesome then too. But I've talked to so many nurses, and they've been through so much. So thank you, nurses, for taking care of us all. And Jomo, I agree. I think everyone here also agrees. Sylvia has a broad question that I quite like. But first, I think someone asked what our favorite Asian eatery is. I'll go to Sylvia. Sylvia asked, hi, Andrew and Evelyn. Do you have any advice for a young 20-something-year-old on how to stay more politically engaged? I want to stay active, but I feel so overwhelmed at times. Thank you. Oh, that's so sweet.
That is sweet. But I think it's a very common feeling. It's so overwhelming, especially the cycle that we've just been through. the presidential, that was a lot. Very overwhelming and so many friends. And, and I feel it too, just like the constant influx of emails and fundraising requests and all these different organizations. It's hard to, it's just hard to make sense of it and stay engaged at the same level.
You know what I'm going to say, Sylvia, and other people here can probably relate to this. You've got to turn off sometimes, because the fact is, especially if we're talking about getting engaged on social media, like Twitter in particular, that if you go in a particular direction, like I always try and stay very, very focused on whatever the actions are. So Sylvia, like, you're being politically engaged is awesome. And we need you in the worst way. But at the same time, it can be exhausting. It can even be enervating and, like, frankly, depressing. Like a lot of politics, when you get into it, a lot of it's about making you feel like very angry at the state of something. And I think one of the things I'm proudest of is that a lot of people have been attracted to our campaign that aren't super like traditionally political, because they've frankly been a little bit turned off by some of the energy like in politics. And I think we have a profound opportunity here to actually introduce like a positive type of politics here in New York City, like a unifying brand. It's not about like, oh, like this group and this group, and like maybe this group can get over on this group. Like that stuff is part of the exhaustion. So Sylvia, if I have advice for you, it's genuinely to try and stay balanced and know that, frankly, if you take like some time off from social media or keeping up with things, it'll be fine. Like generally speaking, just try and stay focused on something like very concrete you can do. So if, for example, you wanted to help us with our campaign, and I'd be super grateful, like, you don't need to worry about trying to like follow every like little like bit of news that's coming out. Just say, you know what I want to do? I want to like get the word out to like X people here in New York City, about it. Maybe they, like volunteer and like knock on some doors or give out some flyers or text bank someone. Maybe like do your own mini fundraiser where you're like, hey, any New Yorker who donates $10 to the campaign, it gets multiplied times 9 essentially. So then like you could be like, hey, I'm going to try and get 10 people to donate $10. Like that kind of thing is actually more impactful than you're keeping up with like every little bit of news like all the time, which is frankly, yeah, just follow Evelyn's lead. Evelyn's actually very, very wise.
I'm hearing a lot of things for the first time.
You can tell.
It's really very fascinating for me. So I'm just like, oh, interesting.
You mean you haven't been watching all of my speeches or keeping up with all of my policies?
I watch very, very little bit.
No, it's true. I then reenact them when I get home. I come home and be like, hey, Evelyn, here's the speech I gave today. We need to do. No, I don't do that. Or else Evelyn would probably, be very,
I would go insane. I don't know how. I mean, I appreciate it so much. You guys, I feel like you guys are doing what I can't even do. I don't have the capacity for
they don't watch everything I do.
I know. A lot of people really do. I think that a lot of people out there really do.
Well, I mean, I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. But I think your campaign is something that's easier, and this is the feedback I get from a lot of people, is that your campaign is much easier to follow because it's so positive. You really focus on what brings people together versus what divides them.
Oh, thank you, baby. I mean, certainly I'm trying, and and anyone out there, like, hopefully you feel that. So just want to give some shout outs. Heather, Abdul, Linda, apparently twice.
Yay.
Harley, Matthew, Shang, Michael, thank you all so much. And if you want to join them and get a shout out, you can just go to andrewyang.com, make a donation at any level. Ronald as well. Thank you. Look, it's happening in real time. So I've gotten a question about, can I address my view on blockchain from Avery? I think the blockchain is a technology with tremendous potential, and I would love to try and help actually maximize and realize that potential here in New York City. I'm really excited about the applications, and I want New York City to be a proving ground. So hopefully, Avery, that's exciting. But frankly, the technology is the future. Blockchain is the future, and I'd love to see it actually solve problems here in New York City. Edgar says, I'd love for Andrew to commit to doubling the minimum basic income commitment from $1 billion to $2 billion per year. This would drive it up closer to $400 a month, which is more in line with the Stockton seed study. Obviously, a huge fan of the Stockton seed study. We just did an event with with Michael Tubbs, who's the mayor until very recently, and is now doing other stuff. And Edgar, you have my word that I'm going to try to increase the level of commitment to our basic income program in New York City. Like we've committed $1 billion, which frankly would be orders of magnitude bigger than anything else that's being done in the US, but I want to go bigger. And I think there's a significant chance that we can go bigger. So, so Edgar, just letting you know, like seeing eye to eye. But yeah, like, you know, we've committed to this level, and we'll see what we can do. So let's see. Morgan asks, how are you thinking about digital infrastructure, improving access to government services through advances in technology? I was just talking to someone about this today, and I'm actually gonna run this by you because this might be very exciting for some people here. Someone I met with today was like, hey, if you're a public school parent in New York City, you don't really know, you can't really keep up with what's going on with your student in terms of like, are they keeping up with their work? You're getting updates, but it's like, you know, via paper. You have, you know, meetings every few months with teachers. And he says, why can't it be that you just have like essentially an app or a platform where it shows like, you know, what your kid's working on, and then if you wanted to, you could beam in.
These apps exist.
These apps exist, and so that's my question for you, because he was describing it like this is a need. What's been your experience been on this side?
I'm trying to remember. I think there's one that's called like Seesaw, or there are a couple that exist, and it's a platform where the teacher can share all, you know, all your child's schoolwork, what they need to do. They can communicate directly with the parents, and parents can comment on assignments, and it definitely exists. And I am all for that. Just it's transparency, basically, at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So Morgan, this is something I have big ambitions and hopes for, which is trying to improve the user friendliness of government in New York City. And one of the ways that I'm hoping to do this is we did an event with a guy named Hugh Ma, who I think many of you might have heard of, more famously as TurboVax. I don't know if you know. Yeah. So I was talking to Hugh about trying to, frankly, have him work for New York City in some capacity. And then he was like, hey, I would really like to consider that, and maybe there's some kind of fellowship that New York City could offer for engineers at various companies, so that instead of having like a complete career switch where they leave their industry and then join government, and frankly, like that for many people that would be like, you know, a non-trivial pay cut.
Like a Teach for America.
Yes. So
like a engineer for New York City.
Yeah, so you could end up with some of the most talented engineers in so many, right?
With technology, right?
Hopefully this is exciting to you all. So then I broached this to other friends of mine in technology, in the tech industry here in New York, who are leaders and CEOs, and they were like, oh yeah, like that, you know. So you can see it, there'd be a lot of talent, the leadership would be for it, the you know, frankly, like if I were mayor, it would be like incredible.
And it's proven. I mean, look at TurboVax, right?
Yeah, I mean,
one guy did what you know, the entire government struggled to do. So
yeah, why couldn't we do it? You know, why couldn't, you know? I mean, like he was great.
Sometimes it's easier when you have less people involved.
Sometimes, yeah, if you have a little SWAT team.
Right.
So some more shout outs. Sharissa from Queens, thank you. Ashwin, Steve from Brooklyn. Steve and Sharissa, your donations are getting multiplied by 9. So thank you. Whatever you donated, it's awesome. Cayenne from Staten Island, also thank you. And then Juan and Fod, really super pumped for your contributions. I don't know how we're doing towards our goal. I don't know.
You know what I really miss? I miss Erica. Why did
you mean our moderator?
Yes, why does it seem like so much love is a party? I don't know.
Erica does make it more of a party.
Festive. Sorry.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah. It's less fun with just, I'm kidding.
No, I mean, Erica does.
No, and also she would she would tell us like how we were doing. We have no idea right now.
That's true. I would like to see us do more on that side. Erica, we miss you. And if you were at the last one, you understand what it is. And so this one, Keith's asking, a lot of people think big cities are no longer necessary at this stage of civilization. What do you think the future of major alpha cities will be? Wow. Wow.
Cool question.
Yeah, what a thought question that is. All right. So here's one of the things that's happened over this last period of time. where there's been this phenomenon called superstar cities, of which New York City, frankly, has been one, and they're kind of like a magnet for talent, and then we've benefited more than other places. And so when you ask about what is the future of major alpha cities like New York, the question is whether talent will still want to convene here, or whether talent will just spread out everywhere. And
I say the former.
Yeah, like so and I think that
talent
people
always likes to convene, right? Talent gets more done together.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the test for New York City in many ways, is do people still want to come together to live, to work, to create, to experience?
Right. But it will be more flexible. I think COVID has shown us that we can do things, you know, like I love the idea of a 4-day work week, but I don't think you can make those sort of decisions. But you know, just like a more you know, like being able to work from home when you want to, that you don't necessarily have to be in the office 9 to 5, but that it is really important to have a meeting place.
Yeah. So, and fundamentally, people are more innovative, creative, and collaborative if we're physically together. And I'm going to say too, you know what? I actually spoke to a person who's like one of the senior most like commercial real estate brokers in New York City. And she described this fascinating arc that companies have had where they went through this period where they were like, oh, we can actually work remotely. Like maybe we should rethink our office space. And then 3 to 6 months later, they were like, actually, I'm getting sick of this. My workers are getting sick of this.
So many people.
Yeah. So Keith, people are still going to want to come together. And as long as that's the case, then a place like New York City will still be poised to frankly, like prosper and benefit. That's the case I would make. I tend to believe it, in part because I've lived it. Like I've been a part of several organizations here in New York City that ended up achieving incredible things. And we had the most diverse, creative people in our team. And it's just that doesn't happen in other parts of the country. Even now, when you're looking at some of the cities that are getting some energy, it's still like, I mean, New York City is still,
but it's energy. It's what you said. Energy. It's like energy is the magic, right? And energy feeds on energy, and you can't feed if.
I also do think that this summer is going to be the summer of love in New York City, because there's a lot of like,
celebration.
It's going to be the summer of celebration
and going out and
like people, I have friends who are going like, their first dates in over a year, like all this stuff's going on.
It's people are just joking, like I can't wait to make out with strangers in a bar again. Like,
well, who you've been talking to? No, I'm like, it's like, I mean, you know,
you guys know what I mean, right?
Oh no, I mean, you know, I'm sure there are some people that very much like can relate to that. Michelle from Queens donating for the second time. Thank you so much. You're awesome. Michael, Trevor, Jalea, Edward, you all are incredible. We are almost at a couple thousand donated to the stream, and because of the multiplier, I'm sure the effective number is really a lot higher than that. So thank you all so much. This has been awesome. Yeah, like let's go New York City. Come, if you're in New York City, thank you. If you're not in New York City, come visit us. The city is open. I've run into so many people that are now visiting. So if you are not in New York City and you miss New York City, come on and visit. Actually, you may even want to visit before June 22nd. You can help us like run around and get out the vote. The weather is warming up. People are out and about. The energy is back.
Yes.
It's coming back. It's not all the way back, but like the energy is on its way. Thank you all so much. Let's go New York, and thank you for your support. It means so much to me and Evelyn.
Thank you, guys.
Yay.